Welcome back to another NewBeeCast. I'm your host Goose, and with me in the studio via Facebook Messenger, I have with me Dell, aka Noodle FPV. Noodle, how's it going, man?
What's going on, Goose? Good to talk to you, man.
Yeah, I know we've been trying to get this podcast in the works for a few weeks now, but we finally got you.
Hey, I know you guys have been busy, so yeah, I'm happy to be here talking to you, man.
Yeah, I know I've had a few people ask me because I've reached out to a few people going, hey, would you be interested in having Noodle? Going, oh yeah, that'd be cool. And then I get people once in a while going, hey, did you do the recording yet? I'm like, no, not yet. So I'm glad it's happening now.
Yeah, yeah. That's how it goes sometimes in this stuff. We get busy. Even me, man. I'm. You guys are actually doing it for your daily job and stuff, and I'm still on the hobby side of it. So
That's all
you
right.
know,
You got to juggle a real job with hobby job.
yeah, kind of. Yeah, I'm getting a little help. We can get into that later.
Cool. Yeah, I'm sure. So, Dell, let's kind of get into first of all. Were you into RC stuff before FPV, or was FPV your first RC love?
Yeah, actually, FPV was where I got into RC. Everybody, gets the little toy RC car for Christmas when they're a kid and stuff like that.
Sure.
Honestly, I hadn't really done a lot of like the more technical stuff or the more technical hobby stuff, more outdoor stuff, and a lot of cycling, rock climbing. That's more what was my hobby interest before. So no, man, drones are where I started.
So since you were doing all that outdoor stuff, which is a pretty extreme difference from, flying little tiny robots in around in the sky, what was there any specific thing that like made you want to get into FPV? Like I specifically remember I was on YouTube and I saw one of the very early videos. I think it was Wired, where it was Norman talking to Charpoo and they were flying at this like abandoned spot with the old QAV 250. So it was pretty older stuff.
Yeah, yeah, I guess that's where the goose inspiration came from. Huh?
Yeah.
But yeah, actually, it was kind of a necessity for me, man. So I spent 5 years in the Marine Corps and had a injury that actually got way worse about 2 years ago.
Mm.
I had a back injury and it wasn't too bad, and then aggravated it enough that I can no longer do what I loved before that, which was motorcycles.
Oh man.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got a few motorcycles in the garage. Can't really ride that much anymore, but that's all right. So I actually was a professional mechanic for quite a while too. So I did a lot of hands-on stuff that I just can't do anymore with my
That's
back.
that's interesting. What any specific kind of mechanic stuff? Cars, bikes?
So yeah, all bikes, man. So I went to MMI. I used my GI Bill to go to MMI, and
Oh,
that's kind
nice,
of my need for technical hands-on stuff. But I actually spent 3 years there and got everything they offer. So
nice.
I got certified in Suzuki, Kawasaki, Yamaha, Honda, Harley, BMW, and a handful of others, Polaris. Once I got out of school and stuff like that. So I went head just like anything else I do. I dove head first and didn't look back. Unfortunately, my back caught up to me, and so that's kind of what segued me into the RC world because I needed something. I was spending all my time on bike stuff, had a full garage set up, lift and everything, and I just couldn't spend the time out there anymore. And I had all this time on my hands, and I needed something to do. And I kind of just fell into it. I At first I thought I wanted a camera drone, and quickly realized that that just wasn't enough. And Went instead of going that direction, I went to the. I don't know if you've probably. So it was 2 years ago in July. So that would be I did the UAV special $99 build. I don't know if you've ever seen that
I
video.
Yeah, I have seen it actually with
So
your buddy Stu.
yeah, yeah, I had two of those things. So that's where I learned to build, and that was my first two builds were trying to hover a 5 inch out and then slowly, very slowly getting in the air. Like I didn't have FPV friends or anything, so
Yeah.
I flew 2 months without prop spinning on arm.
Oh man.
So I made some mistakes and it got to a slow start, but quickly progressed from there.
Yeah, that's I kind of before we get too far off of it, the MMI, that's what it's called, right?
Yeah, and Motorcycles Mechanics Institute. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
pretty much the reputable certification where you get your certifications for that stuff.
Yeah, I thought that was actually kind of cool you've done that because I actually went to UTI,
Oh, nice. Yeah,
and
we're in the same family.
yeah, and I originally, I went into UTI right after I got out of high school because I wanted to work on cars, and then after that I went to go work for Subaru as a technician for almost 4 years, and then I did FPV kind of on the side as a hobby, just like you, and then eventually, I got with NewBeeDrone. Well, we'll get into that in a little bit later. I want to get back to
Yeah.
you more, but
Well, after actually, I wasn't when my back went. I actually wasn't still a mechanic. I had transitioned, and you'll actually know what I'm talking about now that I understand. But yeah, I was a Cornwell. I owned my own Cornwell.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
I have lots
so
of Cornwall
I had
tools.
a route and everything, but getting in and out of that truck is really what did my back in.
Oh wow.
So yeah, unfortunate, but I found a hobby that honestly that stuck harder than anything else has. Yeah, motorcycles they turned into a job, but I jumped. I was a I just jumped from hobby to hobby to hobby, and there's just so much in FPV that you can't get to it all. It's this endless flow of something to do. So yeah, that's why I don't know, man. It's stuck way harder than anything else I've done. So.
Yeah, as small as the FPV industry is compared to like a lot of other hobby industries, it's actually pretty diverse. Like, I started with the 5-inch stuff, and then I got into the whoops, and now I work for NewBeeDrone, so my life revolves around micro brush stuff. But a few months, like 4 months ago or so, I started really getting into 5-inch racing because one of our team pilots, Brady Laffin, he's a really good pilot. He usually gets
Oh yeah,
first up. Yeah,
he's out. Yeah, I've met him.
yeah, yeah, super fast, and he kind of got me into it, and now like I'm really addicted to the 5-inch racing class. Although it does take away a lot of my focus on like whip racing. Like I used to go to like a lot of local whip races, but it's like I'm trying to like keep my muscle memory good for 5-inch racing because when I go back to the tiny stuff, it always kind of it's hard to be perfect at both. Not all of us are right
Right.
over.
Well, and it kind of revolves around events and stuff too. I travel for flying
Mm.
and have done events all over the country just because I enjoy going out and flying different places with people that I don't know and meeting new people. But yeah, it's one of those things that I think sometimes it just fluctuates between sometimes you supplement more with more whoop flying and
Hmm.
less of the 5-inch if maybe funds are a little low or something,
Yeah,
or vice versa if you got a big 5-inch race coming up.
yeah.
And I think we all just kind of have a balance, and we just gotta find that sweet spot for wherever we're at.
Yeah, and I found that at least in California, I don't. It looks a lot better in Arizona where you live, but the whoop racing here, it's not as popular, and some of the events, and this is not knocking any particular ones, but just a majority of the events, it's a whoop race, so I don't think people take the setup and everything as serious as they do with the 5-inch stuff because the 5-inch stuff that I travel around here in California for it's like a full event. They've got full announcers with full timing
Yeah.
systems and all that, and like just not a lot of places invest that kind of stuff for the whoop class stuff. And I understand, but when you go to a all day event and everything's like super pro and super set up and everything's organized, it's a much more enjoyable experience. And
Yeah, we actually took a whole crew of AZ guys out to New Mexico recently and flew with Sean Taylor at his race at the Balloon
I
Museum.
I did see that. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I didn't fly too great, but it was just a blast, man. And I think we're gonna see more of those big whoop races popping up everywhere because man, you guys, everybody it just seems like even Brushed has stepped up its game in the last like 3-4 months.
Yeah.
And I'm totally a brushed angle guy.
Hmm.
Mostly, I do like my brushless stuff, but man, I can't right now. I can't really even with that huge track. We decided to go with brushed instead of AK, and I decided my buddy AK decided to go brushed instead of brushless. So yeah, dude, they're just so fast now. It's just as competitive and can be just as competitive as the 5-inch stuff. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of the big whoop races popping up here and there with money prizes and all that good stuff. But you can still go home feeling like I don't know, the events are still just not quite that serious. They may get big but I think you'll see because let's be real. At whoop racing, there's a little bit of luck involved.
Yeah,
So sometimes you get a good bounce, sometimes you don't. But yeah, I
especially
think
with batteries.
right. So because of that, I think that you get a lot more of a fun environment because like, oh man, oh that just happened, whatever kind of
Yeah,
thing. Instead of I just smashed somebody in a corner with my 5 inch and there goes the $300 rig or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, so there's just not quite as much at stake.
right. Yeah, that's a good point because I know with like especially the light that we had the active braking in, it's really kind of a game changer to how like whoops feel and can fly in general. I know
Well,
especially with freestyle, it's amazing, especially with our plaid motors. But then the work that Patrick Clark's done with Project Mockingbird for his angle stuff, um, it's it's really great. Like when I fly angle with a B-Brain light for racing, I like to use Project Mockingbird, and then otherwise I'll use the Hummingbird with the tune they have on the Silverware, and I found those to both to be just awesome for racing. And it's like you said, it's really amazing what brushed whoops are capable of now these days in terms of maneuverability and power wise. Because back in the day when it was just the Inductrix and people were just slapping an all-in-one camera on top of them, they were slow little heavy little piggies, and they.
and I flew the TWR for an extremely long time
Hmm.
too. So I had that just the board, no plug-in, no setup, just go for a really long time. But when I changed, I had to finally change because I just started didn't have the angle and just started getting my butt kicked at every single one of the races by the guy within the community that we had built up here. So
Yeah, and it's so nice now that even flying style aside, there's just so many new features like having the OSD and then having like the ability to change your VTX stuff on the fly. So that way, like especially at an event where you gotta control channels and all that, you're just like, okay, hold on 1 second. 5 seconds later, you're on the right channel. So it's very convenient for stuff like that.
yeah, that's oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. They sound excited.
Yeah, uh, somebody else just got home, so
No worries. No worries. They can be on the show too.
yeah, but yeah, dude, it's they're just you guys especially just cramming a lot in these boards, and all the features are trickling down from the 5 inch stuff,
Yeah.
and it's getting pretty cool, man. It's
Yeah.
getting pretty cool, and it's only gonna grow from here.
And I like that you kind of brought up how you decided to use the brushed instead of the brushless because, you know, we don't have the brushless out yet, and a lot of other companies have had them out for a little bit now. And every day we get messages, "When's the brushless coming out? Why don't you have a brushless? Do you guys not care about brushless stuff?" It's not that we don't care about it, but we've had brushless prototypes of our own board for a while now. We're just testing it and tuning and testing different motor combinations and battery combinations of running 1S, 2S, and all that. And it seems like for the 65 millimeter frame size, everyone's going still like 1S on 802 size motors, I think. Would
Yep.
you?
Oh, I actually, yeah, I've been flying. I got one of pretty much each set of the all but one, yeah, all but one of each flavor of the Tiny Whoop brushless motors, and I've been flying those on the Crazy Bee F4
Mm-hmm.
for quite a while now, and that was actually what I had to choose between. 802 19,000 kV are the boost juice,
Yeah.
and those are super super solid on 1S and feels a lot like a peppy indoor brushed. But I really actually like the I think it's where they 603s,
Mm-hmm.
the Jiffy Juice. I got one of those too, and it has its own fun flight characteristics. So what I think you're gonna see is a lot of uh, a lot of variation, maybe even some variation, even on the 65 mil for brushless, and then you kind of see the track, work out the track, and then pick the machine that best fits it. So I think there's going to be more of that with the brushless than there is with the brushed. Whereas I feel like with the brushed, it feels more like a spec race.
Yeah, exactly. Now, your opinion on the brushless stuff. That 802, you said you're using a 19,000 kV.
Yes, on 1S.
Is that
And
your?
then I have the 17.5s on 2S as well.
So let me ask you this then. If you're kind of on a regular whoop size course like the ones that you've been going to with your brushed stuff, if
Mhm.
you're to use the brushless setup on that on an 802 size motor, what kV is your weapon of choice for racing?
Yeah, definitely the 19,000. But
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I would go with the 603s on a traditional. And I'm the track designer,
Uh-huh.
so we have anybody that's seen the videos of our tracks. I really enjoy technical tracks.
I can see that.
With uh, technical with stretched out sections, and
Mm-hmm.
I play around a lot with that. But yeah, I would even on most of my tracks, maybe even go with the 603 on the 1S. A little bit less battery drain as well, and you can make the longer tracks with the smaller battery. So maybe even a 255 on that instead of the 333s, like I like to fly on my normally on my 802.
Do you find switching from a 250 battery to the 300 size one makes like a noticeable difference?
Just when I'm doing a lot of the yaw left to yaw right stuff.
Yeah.
So you're coming in and you have to do a hard 180. So you have to do a hard 180 left, and then you immediately have to throw yaw the opposite direction. I feel like you can feel it there in the corners because you're just slinging all that extra weight.
Right.
Kind of like putting 7 millimeter motors on a brushed rig instead of six. You can I mean it's 5 grams difference on most variations of those two motors, and you're looking at 25% of the weight of the craft. So that's a lot.
Yeah.
when,
It
when you're
doesn't
really
sound like a lot, but when you say
right.
25%, that's a
Right,
lot.
and that's rough. But you get the idea. There
Yeah.
is a lot of that. The weight difference makes a huge difference on these little guys because of the percentage of what it actually it is of the whole craft weight.
Now, are you finding it's more of a difference in terms of the handling or how many laps or how long your battery will last to like get you to the end of the
Handling
range?
a little both. You definitely obviously you're going to get even with the heavier battery on the 333s, you're going to get a longer flight time,
Mm-hmm.
and depending on your motor and prop combination. But yeah, I think that you feel it really in those tight sections. I've messed around with the B-Brain light with 7 mil motors, with 6 mil motors, and I distinctly remember getting my butt kicked in one section when I was on the 7 mil motors because it was a slalom gate,
Mm-hmm.
those tiny square gates, but they were just right on top of each other, one after the other, and you had to slalom through it. And you could definitely feel it in there. So I feel like with that little bit less weight, I keep everything tight, and that's really my flying style. I try to keep tight lines, and instead of lining things up in full throttle through each thing, more of a flowy type track in tight lines is what I like.
Yeah.
So lighter craft kind of plays to that. I
Yeah.
think I like the 603s on the brushless.
Yeah, I can definitely kind of agree to that to an extent because when I was at the DRL event in Las Vegas, this last one where Flexi took first,
Oh yeah,
uh, the night before it was I forget it was like towards the end of the event though, but we were up in Hot Dog FPV's hotel room in the Luxor, and he had like a whole little course set up with a bunch of gates and stuff.
yeah, I got
And
the fly
oh,
it.
okay, I don't. I think you had gone there before I was there because I don't remember
Yeah,
seeing
we
you there.
we ducked in for a little bit.
Uh, And I was flying the light, and then there was a couple. It was hot dog, and then this other younger kid had the tiny whip brushless set up because that had like just come out, and they were they're good pilots, but it was such a small tight course that like I 90% of the time I was taking the win with the light. So I really
Yeah,
do think like in super tight courses the brush still has an advantage in terms of
yeah,
that.
for sure. And it's different flying styles for people too. So what I've noticed is a lot of the guys that try to fly a brushed like a 5 inch
Mm-hmm.
have issues, and they have less of an issues on the brushless rigs.
Mm.
So whereas me personally, I've put a lot of stick time in on the brushed, and have really trying to master. I don't feel like I've mastered it, but I'm still trying to master that perfect throttle control, which I think is the number one as a racer. The number one thing a brush pilot should work on is their throttle control, because that's what wins races. That's what keeps the power going forward.
Yeah. Do you think on the brushless stuff the it's more sensitive like when you give throttle like one thing I noticed I don't like I said I haven't really tested other ones but there'd be some section where it was a spiraling like little corkscrew gates that you had to go up
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Like a ladder up.
Yeah, and I'd noticed like the guys that were using the brushless, like it was really they'd hit the top of the gate much easier when they're trying to ascend. So I don't know if the brushless is just like you have to be a lot more sensitive on the throttle for that, or
Well, I feel like I said, I feel like they fly like a 5-inch pilot could fly it easier than a brush, just because it's more forgiving
hmm
in a lot of ways. But just because it's more forgiving doesn't mean it's faster.
right.
So yeah, so that's kind of how I whatever I'm feeling. If it's an open, open class race, whatever I'm feeling, it could go one way or the other. But I've been in love with my brush setups, and I still think they're a little bit faster than my brushless.
That's
But I'm also not a tuner either. I'm trying to get into it more, but I'm definitely more of the pilot than than a tuner. And that's why we talked about Mockingbird, and he is our mutual friend. I met him at the Invitational, and we were actually channel buddies at the Invitational, so we became pretty good friends. And actually, there's kind of a good story that goes along with that. So we were both on F7, and there's some phantom video issues going on at the Invitational, and F7 was kind of a death sentence at the time. And we were trying to still get it worked out, whatever, no big deal. But me and Patrick ended up drawing the same heat together, and he looked at me, and they looked at both of us and said, "Okay, one of you guys needs to change off of F7." And me and him looked at each other, and we were like, "Oh, so who's it gonna be?" Because F7 was just a bad channel at the time. Yeah,
Rock
that's how
paper
it goes.
scissors.
Yeah, well, no, Patrick took the very, very high road, and he told me, "Well, you got a better chance than me." So
What a guy.
yeah, what a guy. So from that point forward, he's been my best friend. But he's definitely walked me through a lot, and hooked me up with some tunes and stuff like that, because I just don't. I'm more of a on the sticks guy than a tuner.
Yeah, he is a tuning. I talk to him almost daily because we work on projects with him a
Yeah,
lot at NewBeeDrone, and yeah, he is a tuning wizard, and it's funny because you think like the guys that are always like flying the most at races and winning, for you think like they would have like the most in depth of like what they know and stuff, but it's like it's totally the opposite. The people that are usually faster have less time and involvement in actual tuning, and then the people that are involved in tuning have less involvement in like placing
right.
high, and so it's kind of a funny little balance.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. But I'm definitely more on the stick side. But I even wear I wear the Mockingbird logo on my jersey because he helps
Nice.
me so much out with my tunes. Yeah, he's awesome, awesome guy.
Yeah, that's one of our popular sellers, the Hummingbird edition of the B Brain Light, where it comes in this little turquoise color.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I definitely I haven't gotten I've got 3 hummingbirds, but one of my and one of the Project Mockingbird Bee Brain Light, and I really man, it's really it's just good. They're just fast, man. And I do fly with the hummingbird stuff. It really got me thinking about the zero stuff. And when I said I was learning, I'm learning about all the zero tuning and stuff like that.
hmm
I've gotten the hookup and gotten in touch with some guys. So I'm learning slowly.
You talking with
But
Travis?
yes, I am.
Yeah, he knows a lot of
He's been
stuff.
super awesome. Yeah, he's been super awesome. So has Patrick. So I've really fallen. The hummingbird really allowed me to fall in love with the F-Zero
Yeah.
stuff. And
Have
so
Have you tried our Hummingbird now? Because we came out with a tune for like the Plaid and Venom motors.
I have, yeah,
Okay.
and I do like that tune a lot,
Okay.
and it feels really really good. But I've even chopped up some Biblade Gym fans, and it felt really good in that too. That's actually what I flew at that last race.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
I
was
wanted to ask, like, what's your? Because I know you're using our stuff, you're using Alien, you're using everything, but like, and this is like, I'm not. You don't have to tell me you like our stuff the best, or it's,
yeah,
I want you to be completely honest. Like, what's your current like weapon of choice for like brush stuff?
yeah. So right now I am flying the Alien Move Zero.
hmm
it's almost the same tune as what's on the Hummingbird. So yeah, it's pretty much that. But I do like I like the camera. I run the TW 950 or the FX TW 950 TW. I can't remember the tiny whoop camera because I am sponsored. Jesse picked me up about I want to say about 8 months ago.
Hmm.
So I am sponsored by Tiny Whoop. So and I really enjoy that camera and board. But like I said, it's flashed with Patrick's tune.
Right, but you don't
So,
have any OSD with that setup.
no, I do not. Now I flew no OSD for a really, really long time,
Hmm.
and I got to understand and know, and I think I have the discipline from that for batteries
Yeah.
to know when to come down and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And also, I don't keep batteries around if they start to give up on me. So I have a really good feeling for that, which is not the case with a lot of with new pilots.
Yeah.
But I just flew for so long on the TWR that I just have a good it's like a whoop sense. The spidey sense goes off in my head.
The whoop
It's
sense.
time to come down. But yeah, and it works out. But yeah, I would say for sure that the Hummingbird really made me fall in love with the Zero stuff, and since then I have continued to pursue kind of understanding and learning about all that more.
Yeah.
So because it feels like flashing nothing else. It's just kind of weird when you first do it because you're so used to Beta Flight or Flight One like
Yeah.
me. But
Yeah. It's funny. I remember a while ago because the light came out obviously a while ago, and you were a DSM guy back then. I don't know if you still are anymore.
no, I've actually switched to the Tyrannus, but I'm actually and I'm testing a T16 right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm trying to figure out
but
what I
then you can
want.
be like any guy you want with a T16.
Right. Well, I'm pretty much any guy I want with my X Lite too, because I have one of the universal modules in the back. I can
Ah,
still fly PWR with my X Lite.
gotcha. But I wanted to say that for the longest time you were DSM, and so obviously everyone knows that the DSM was a lot more delayed than our FR Sky version of the B-Brain Light. And I
Right.
remember you going, "Hey, when's the DSM one coming out?" And I just remember you asking all the time because you're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
"Man,
I
like
was
I'm having
excited.
guys with lights like whoop me at races."
Yeah, yeah,
So
and okay, so there is one specific time that I decided that it was time to change. It was time to move on from what I was flying before because we always do chase the ace in our A mains every Thursday night,
yeah.
and I had one win. My buddy Chet had one win, and he pulled me in the last stretch to the crash gate because I
Mm.
didn't have enough angle.
Ah,
Yeah.
dang.
So and I was on a TWR with 7 mil motors.
Right.
So TWR and 7 mil motors is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Uh, but I just need a little more angle.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing about the TWR, it's fine, not bashing anything, but because it's not beta flight, it's using the closed source Horizon Hobby stuff. You can't adjust any of the like the PIDs or anything like that
Right
to kind of.
now, I will say this. I learned a lot about how I think angle mode should feel
Hmm.
by flying that thing because that was the staple. For so long, the Horizon Hobby, what is it? The FPV board, the Inductrix FPV board is what's in the TWR.
Hmm.
But for so long, that was the standard for how angle mode, how it really felt. And Project Mockingbird was kind of, from what I understand. Correct me if I'm wrong here. From what I understand, was to get Betaflight to feel more like that in angle mode.
You are 100% correct in that statement.
So so yeah, I feel like I learned a lot about angle mode by flying that, and that's really why I think I like the F-Zero, the Hummingbird, or the Zero, or whatever you're flying, with that kind of firmware, or whatever technical stuff, blah 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 blah. I don't know what I'm saying. If I say something wrong, sorry. But yeah, you know what I mean. With that setup, I feel like that angle mode is just so
Yeah.
solid, and I got the peppy yaw, which was the drawback to the Inductrix FPV board. Yaw was a little slow, but you start to master the yaw, and you just get good at it, good at predicting that slow yaw. But now with the crispy yaw and all that, with all that put in together, lap times have just come way down.
Yeah, I feel like all the kind of pinnacle racing brush boards right now, like the Hummingbird, the Alien Whoop, this most silverware boards, even the Bee Brain Light, the Project Mockingbird tune. I think those are all based around trying to improve and mimic the original Inductrix angle mode.
Right. And that's, and that's where I don't do a lot of acro whooping,
Yeah.
because I've always been an angle mode guy, and me and Jesse talk about it a lot because he's the same way. He gets out there and freestyles every now and then, but yeah, I'm kind of an angle mode, kind of a, I don't know, angle mode. Um, I just love angle mode, man, and I want to go. I'm mostly focused on racing, but even when I'm cruising around, just trying to have a good time and fly, I normally fly my Tiny Boot Nano because that thing's pretty freaking cool. And so, we're just cruise and fly. I prefer to fly in angle mode, man, and it's just a good time. It's suited for that brushed craft, I think. But
Yeah, I agree completely because for the longest time, like when the Bee Brain Light first came out, I was always a Horizon guy for racing, and I was like, oh, like I'll be honest, I was super biased, and I think the only thing that was like competing in that back then was the Alien Whip boards, and that was like super angle, like that was like close to the Inductrix one. And I'm like, angle's too limiting. Like Horizon, I can tilt way more, so it's like way better. Blah blah blah, And I was like, I was just talking all this like ish,
yeah,
And then what really convinced me? What's that?
you knew what you're talking about, right?
I mean, I
At
knew
the
from
time.
experience from
Yeah,
flying.
yeah, yeah.
And I do think that statement is still true when you compare it to stock Betaflight angle mode. But once I kind of started learning, I got in touch with like Patrick Clark, and he made the Project Mockingbird tune, and I remember flying it for the first time. And you're exactly right on that snappy yaw. The yaw is like super high rates, and I was like, "Whoa, this is like way
You love
different."
that.
But
Love
he's
that.
like, give it a few batteries and just try it, and like, so I was like, "All right," So I gave it a try, and I fell in love with it. Like, I can't go back to Horizon mode. I'm just so used to like my lap times improves greatly when I switched over to this style. And if I fly something that doesn't have that snappy yaw, I'm just like, oh, I'm like being
Yeah,
denied this like extra ability that I have. And then
yeah,
I let other people fly it, and they're like, oh, the yaw is too sensitive. I'm like, no, get used to it, and then you won't, you'll
yeah.
regret not having it.
Yeah, I used to tell everybody with my TWR, in order to, I kind of flew my yaw like a freestyle pilot
Mm-hmm.
flies, where you time your rolls, you time everything with your sticks, you know your rate, so you time the sticks in order to do whatever you want to do. So if that means to hit yaw right before the gate or even before that or something like that, I kind of, you just time the stick movements. You know that if you hold the stick for a certain amount of time and bring it back to center, that your yaw, you're going to do a perfect 180, or you need to do a 720 drop down or something like that. So I think that I tell people that I kind of flew like a freestyle pilot, but now I can fly like a racer
Yeah.
with that crispy yaw, because it's more intuitive, less less compensating for the aircraft's limitations.
Yeah, and there's even some guys at local brewery races we have down here. Not a lot because now it's becoming like, oh no, duh, angle's the way to go. But kind of before Project Mockingbird really blew up and like Hummingbird came out and all that stuff, there's still guys that would be like flying full air mode, acro
Right.
mode at these races, and they're like, oh, you're using angle. It's so you can only I'm gonna be able to have way more angle on you going forward in a straight line. I'm like, okay, but I'm gonna destroy you in turns and stuff. Like basically all I have to do is like worry about my yaw and like forward and throttle. I don't worry about roll really ever because you're mainly
Right.
just steering with your yaw. So.
Yaw. You gotta think yaw. The whole time you fly tiny whoop, just think yaw, and you'll become a better pilot.
Yeah, it's true, man. It's funny to think, but yeah, it's almost like driving a little car. You're just your yaw. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. You kind of, and because the a lot of the acro stuff you're having to, that's why acro flies so well in on 5 inch, because you can do these elevation changes and all this stuff in acro, because you have these giant motors and this huge battery that have so much authority to push you the direction you want to go.
Hmm.
Well, take that away from it, and yeah, you can still run those crazy lines, those crazy elevation change lines, but it's not you're just taking a chance. You're taking a huge risk by doing that, because any bump you're upside down in acro,
Yeah.
and I can't, it's always faster. So when you fly in, you're flying more on a plane with a angle whoop than you are with a acro. So it's more of a flat plane. So you're looking at how what's the fastest way to get from A to B is a straight line. So if I'm doing an elevation change, I don't want to do this giant elevation change. So I'm going to gradually push my whoop in the straightest line I can down to the next gate, so to not lose time. Whereas with the acro, you're looking at way more of a difference in line selection. So
That is very true. Well spoken, my friend. Well spoken. But you
I think way
mentioned
too much about this stuff, man.
what's that?
I think way too much about this
Oh,
stuff.
that's okay, man. It's part of a hobby. The point of a hobby is spending way too much time in it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, where would the fun be?
And there's a level of obsession, but good obsession. Like with our Thursday, we race every single Thursday night whoop race, and if
Hmm.
we all weren't just a little bit obsessed and a little bit crazy about this stuff, we wouldn't be racing every single week. So yeah, I think that to be fully immersed in it, you kind of get lost in it, but that's kind of what saved me too when I got into the hobby, because I had to drop away from something that I'd done for so long.
Yeah, it's all right, man. That's normal, man. Anyone who tells you otherwise, forget them.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, but with the angle mode acro stuff, I know you've stuck up with for me in my comments quite a bit because I forgot. I think it's the B Brain Lite. Does it come up stock with the mode that it's in? I think it says angle or stable or something like that.
So
Um,
with the light, it's we set it up because we're trying to set this up so that it's friendly for people who
right,
have never flown. It's not just hardcore racers, but it comes standard with angle, horizon, and then air mode.
right. So, but it displays it on your OSD,
Correct.
and so when I was posting DVR, everybody was, "Oh, you're running angle," and I'm like, I don't even think that's an argument anymore, man.
Yeah.
Now the argument's brush versus brushless.
Right. So
Moving on.
be like, man, it's just like there's a reason all the top pilots run it. Like
Yep.
one example that I always like to keep using, Vanover at the Tiny Whip, Invitational.
But
He is not like before that. He barely ever flew whoops. Like we sent him his prototype DSM B Brain Light like a week or two before the event, so he had like that much time to practice,
so,
and he flew the stock Betaflight angle mode. All he did was just increase the angle a little bit, but like that's all he did from
yep.
what I understand. And if he can do that, then there's no argument that angle mode is like superior for racing and stuff.
Right. Yeah, and me and Vanover are pretty good buddies. I've gotten to travel with Vanover a lot because I'm also on the Flight One team.
Hmm.
I work for Flight One. I live just a few miles away from headquarters, so I go over there every day and help them out with shipping and stuff like that. But Alex comes out to see us every now and then
Hmm.
for Preston with Flight One and stuff. And also, I had the privilege of being a judge on DR1 last year.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
I did 37 days in Europe with all those pro pilots on that tour, and it was just too cool, man. We got to make so many good friends. And Vanover, he actually stayed with he was one of my roommates for the Invitational too. So he stayed in the same Airbnb as we did. So yeah, I know Vanover pretty good, man. He's a good dude.
Yeah, funny
Flies
guy.
anything fast. That's the thing.
Right? It's like what the heck?
Okay, so we're talking Chinese 5 inch. We're about to see what's going to happen on DRL, and then on DR1 he flew the Pro class, and that's the giant drones. And I was actually got to be on the line because me and my buddy were actually in charge of a lot of the Pro class drones and stuff, getting them ready to go and all that. But so we were out there, and they do a practice lap around this massive track in Croatia, and Vanover hits a gate, something like that. Long story short, comes back. His quad, his giant quad, has an arm that's about, I don't know, 5-10 degrees south, further south than the rest of them. So he's got this one droopy arm, and we're like, sorry, dude, we don't got any more. You're flying it. And he kicked everybody's butt with that broken giant drone. I'm telling you, man, it's nuts. I don't,
Was this X class you're talking about?
yeah, well, it's pro for DR1. There's some sort of name situation there, but it's there for DR1. It was called Pro Class.
What is the size comparison? Because I'm
It's
not
the same.
familiar with it.
So, Colby actually built the ones that we flew at DR1, or that they flew at DR1. I didn't. I'm shedding a small tear right now because I never got to fly one. But but yeah, he built those. So they're the giant carbon arms with the, I forgot what size prop, dude. I can't. Just huge. But we had five of them in the air. That race that he won, there was five of them in the air. So if you guys haven't seen that, go. I think all the DR1 stuff is actually on YouTube now. So I think it's the second Croatia race is where he wins that race. Pretty freaking cool.
Wow.
But yeah, he's just a master at anything he touches. That punk.
Damn. Damn.
But yeah, really good dude. Same way with Sean Taylor. He was on DR1 with us too, and became pretty good friends with him. Saw him at New Mexico at that race, and he's one of those guys. I raced against him in. I raced against him.
Dude, I have
I
a
was
funny
at the
story to
same-
say about Sean Taylor before.
I was at the same race as him in Denver, and they flew those Ubify Dracos, those bind and fly,
Yeah.
like 2205, but they're 2205 motors on them, but they're just like these huge, heavy, stupid, drone things.
Mhm.
I don't know, they have their place, but for racing, they're big, they're heavy comparatively, and he just rips this thing around this track like it was nothing. So there's just guys, man. There's guys that can just do it,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of time and effort. But I'm okay with getting beat as long as the community's getting bigger and we're having a good time. So
Yeah. Before we get too far off onto the next subject, one thing kind of back to Vanover, I actually was talking to him this morning online, and he messaged me, and he's like, hey, man, like, what's up with the B-Brain brushless? I want to have something to rip at I.O. And we actually already started manufacturing. We're going to do 200 tester boards first. We have like this kind of tester program whenever we introduce like a really big new board that's coming to the market. We did the same thing with the light where we had like the
yeah,
big...
yeah, my buddy AK, he was on the list. I think he's still flying that board. He won on that board.
Oh, wow. That's funny because those had like actual like
A
external
capacitor.
capacitor on it. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he flew. I don't know. He'll have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm fairly certain he won that race in New Mexico on that board.
Oh, that's awesome. And that even speaks more to Vanover because like the DSM one, I think I don't remember if his still had the external cap, but there was
It
a
did not.
okay,
I remember. Yeah, he at the Invitational. There were some issues early on with. I think he had three quads, but there were some issues early on with the DSM stuff because that was way before.
yeah, those
everyone-
were actually like all hand soldered like
Yeah. Well, that's what prototypes are usually hand built anyways.
yeah, like every little chip was hand soldered on that board, and it wasn't like the final revision. And so like he kept having VTX problems with it, and from what I understand, he just soldered on like an external all-in-one to it, and
Okay.
so it was like 3 grams heavier than like a normal whoop would be because he had 2 VTXs on it. And the
Yep.
thing was like we couldn't like turn off like through the software. There was no way to disable the internal VTX, so like that was still consuming power. While and he still like killed it there. So I have no idea.
Was it at least pitted or something?
Well, we did have the ability to go to 1 milliwatt or 25, so he was able to put it in
Okay,
25.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, but yeah, so to just rub salt in the wound, you're talking about me waiting, I wanted to fly it so bad, but I was all DSM,
Yeah.
and so he left one of those prototypes that had some issues at the house at the Airbnb after we left, so I got to carry it around until I saw him again. I got to carry it around and look at this DSM prototype while I was waiting for mine to come.
Oh man, I'm sorry, buddy.
No, dude. But it worked out perfect because I switched over to the X Lite and I was like, sweet, now I can fly it. Now I can fly it. And I got one, and then like I swear 2 weeks later the DSM one dropped.
Yeah. I remember your post, like you posting like I finally caved in, and you like showed that you bought a FR Sky radio and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm always looking for something new to put me on the next, put me a little bit faster. You know, we're all trying to get off the plateau that we're on and on to the next one. So try to get a little faster.
yeah.
But I'm always changing stuff up.
Yeah, so to speak more about the brushless, so like I said, we're doing 200 tester units, and these are like pre-tuned and configured for 1S. They have the capability to do 2S, but like right now, like the tune and the motors that we're going to be including it's a 802 size motor. I don't remember if this is the correct KV, so don't quote me on this. It's I think it's 19,000. It's 19,000 or 20,000 kV. I don't remember. Maybe
It's in the wheelhouse. So yeah,
yeah,
either one.
it's around
Great.
there. So yeah, and I think he's gonna have one of those at IO. I don't know. Are you going to IO?
Oh yes, I am, and I am 100% whooping while I'm there too. So I can't wait.
Maybe I'll have to get you one then too.
Ooh.
Put some work
Yeah,
in you.
but yeah, I was gonna ask you, what's guy got to do to get on the tester list?
Send me a
But
message. I already consider you on the list, so don't worry about it.
my main issue with my brushless rig is I feel like there's something to be had with the FC. I think a lot of the motors, it's just like 5-inch motors, man. You find a decent motor, it's gonna be a good motor. It
Mhm.
doesn't mean that that one's way better than the other one. They're probably a lot of these motors are on the kind of the same level too. So it's just pick your flavor and go, man. And but one of the things that I think is that lacks is that crazy BF4 board. Of course, like I said, I'm not a tuner. I mostly just dump people's tunes onto my stuff, but I'm looking forward to flying something different.
Yeah. Have you again? This is not bashing anything, but have you had any reliability things with the board?
I had one go, and I have two, three, two on yeah, two on 1S and one on 2S.
Hmm.
The one on 2S we do every now and then we do a brushless race here at our local community, our awesome Phoenix, Arizona local community here, and I've gotten a win on with that 2S, man. It is so quick flying against 75s, and I against really good pilots flying the 75. So a little 65, and it's held up to the voltage. Now I know a lot of people are having issues. I think with the toothpick stuff, swinging those big. I don't know if that's the same board. Anyways, I've had one go and that's it. I've had really good luck with mine.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard. I don't know if it was the toothpick builds or the regular ones, but yeah, I've heard a few people complain about the QC on that, but I don't know.
Right? Yeah, I don't have anything that I race that's bigger than an 802 motor
Yeah,
either. So and the 2S is I mean it's KV'd for it. So
yeah.
yeah, I don't I've just never had any major issues, but it's about with my whoop flying, I'd say it's about 80-20 brush to brushless flying.
Hmm.
So I'm still definitely on the brush train right now.
Yeah. So to get back to I said I had a story about Sean Taylor.
Yeah, let's hear it.
All right. So this is when he was still with. I think this is like right before he was not a sponsored pilot with Emacs anymore.
Yeah, so
He
right around our one time.
Yeah. So he came down to our here in San Diego and went to one of our local Wednesday night races that we do with 5-inch stuff at
Yeah.
a location we call Widowmaker. Um,
Is that the
and
park?
yeah, oh, it's a big giant parking lot that's like behind a
I
factory.
can like come fly with you guys sometime.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I'm not meaning to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're good. And this was like right when everyone just started switching over to like 6S battery stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and he was there, and he was just flying I think it was the Hawk 5, what they call it.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
buying one.
yeah, he was just flying like a base Hawk 5, and everyone there was like using 6S rig setups, and he went there and he had like a 6S version and a 4S version, or no, maybe he just had one 6S version, and he
Yeah,
ran it.
he was on the six. I think they were really low kV, like 1600 kV motors or something. He was flying around
Yeah,
that.
and so he had some 6S batteries, but for whatever reason he only had like a few, so he ran out of 6S batteries, and he's still like just whooping everybody with
Yeah.
the
Oh yeah.
6S. But then he's like, "Oh, hold on, I'll just start using 4S batteries on my 6S build." So, and of course, when you do that with that kind of KV setup, you're gonna have less power. But man, are you familiar with a guy, another racer named James the Ripper?
Oh yeah, dude. James was on DR1.
Yeah,
James homie.
yeah, yeah. He's a local down here, and he used to be one of our sponsor pilots way back in the day. But then he got super good and moved on to DR1 and all that stuff. But yeah, he doesn't really come to our local races anymore just because he's like traveling and stuff now. He's like evolved so much. But he used to be like one of the local guys that came to every race, and he was like the fastest guy there. And like no joke, James is a beast, you know. And he it was him and Night Fury racing, and so he just swaps to 4S battery, and everyone's like, oh good, now we actually have a chance. And he still just like destroys everyone with his 4S 6S build, and it was just crazy. Like he like lapped James using that 4S stuff. It was insane.
Yeah, he's unreal, man. Yeah, James, he was the guy when we used to, 37 days in Europe. You end up going out a few nights a week,
Hmm.
and he was always the guy that would stand in the back with me. We'd talk. We were the guys in the back, just kind of chilling on the back wall.
Yeah.
So James is a really good dude. But we managed to get Sean to go freestyle. It was one. It's a highlight of my FPV career. Was getting we were in Slovenia, a really pretty valley, and we managed to get Sean Taylor out to go freestyle.
Yeah.
And if anybody knows Sean does not freestyle. So he is a racer, and but he can freestyle, trust me. But it was awesome. Just went out and had a good time flying with those guys, and I just made so many good friends on that trip, and made so many good connections. Going to Nats this year was just so much fun because seeing everybody, and I'm definitely not the fastest guy. I'm never gonna be the fastest guy, but you don't have to be to have a good time
Mhm.
at these big events. And people feel intimidated, dude. Who cares? We all get beat, man, all
Yeah.
the time. Man, I get beaten most Thursdays because AK is super super fast. But as long as we're battling and having a good time, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I encourage everyone to reach out. My whole first year of 5-inch racing, I traveled down with Dallas Kemp, America FPV.
Hmm.
I think you know that guy.
Yeah.
But we traveled around a ton, and I just got out there and flew, and met a ton of people, and now I get to go to these big events and see all my really good friends. So
Yeah. It's always a good time. I
yeah,
gotta I gotta ask because I'm doing my due diligence. Hoagie, he flies with you guys right at the whoop races.
yeah.
How's he doing? I gotta.
Yeah. Okay, he's a good kid. But we always refer to him as the Midair King
Oh
because
God.
him and his buddy Chet like to take us out. But
Oh dang.
I'm more of the calculated passer. He's more of the full send all the time.
Yeah.
So it turns into it turns into some very different styles of racing. But yeah, dude, he's good. He's trying to make and decide what he likes right now. I think I don't know when the last time you talked to him was, but he's going back and forth between the Hummingbird and B-Brain. But yeah, dude, he's fast too. We just have a lot of fast pilots here, man. A
Yeah.
ton of fast pilots because we've managed in the last year to get everybody to that level, and then I'm pushed by AK because I'm chasing him, and he's pushed because he's him, and he always just wants to go faster.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, and we got another guy, Lorenzo. He's super fast too. Chet, and Hogan, and that's kind of our pro class right now. So we have three different, and every Thursday night we have three different classes we run, or four sometimes if we have first timers, and so everybody's battling. You get three wins within your class, and you move up to the next class. So Lorenzo just bumped up into the pro class, and I think he's going to be giving everybody a run for their money. So yeah, man, and that's kind of we wanted that here. We wanted that competition because we think that it can be just as competitive and as fun as 5-inch racing. So and without all the logistical restraints that 5-inch has.
Yeah. You know that may be in part my fault. Hoagie's racing behavior because I always tell him like, oh, don't worry if you break something, dude. I'll just hook you up with the new stuff. But
I keep
Hoagie,
doing.
I know he'll be listening to this. By that I don't mean mid-air your fellow pilots.
No, dude, he's great, man, and he's fast. He'll come out one night to smoke everybody. And I think he's just an all-out flying style, man.
Yeah.
He is everywhere, and I'm a very if anybody's seen my videos, I am always trying to be smooth because smooth is controlled for me, and controlled is usually faster, and controlled is consistent. So that's kind of how I fly. Whereas, I'm like. I'm always, and that's probably why I float around, at big races and stuff like that. I'll be third, fourth, fifth, around there, depending, because that's how I fly. But it's a consistency game for me usually,
Hmm.
because if I push too hard, it's just I'm gone, dude. I will hit something and be done.
Yeah.
So
Plus, if you're like going all out all the time, like Hoagie, that's well, that may be good. That's also high risk, you know.
right, and there's some other pilots out there that have that style and have been super successful with it. But I'm not willing to roll the dice, I guess.
Yeah, I'm the
So
exact same way with flying 5 inch stuff.
yeah, and I'm a fairly consistent 5 inch pilot too, but I definitely have been leaning on my whoops recently and flying more whoops recently.
Yeah,
So,
it's nice not going out to a race event and going, is this race going to cost me $300 in gear? You know, like my last race I went to, like I had just done like a whole new 5 inch build, and I was using like really high end stuff. Like I was using a lot of Surge's Pyro drones frame, like the Floss 3.0 frame, and I was using like his 4-1 ESC, his FC, like a lot of high end stuff. The only thing I kind of cheaped out on was the motors because those get killed no matter how nice they are
oh
really
yeah,
quickly.
yeah, true
Um,
story.
so it was like a $450 bill with crossfire and all that. And my first lap, I'm doing really good, and then like I'm in first place, and then like as I start coming around these tandem gates, I kind of slow down to make sure I get it smooth, and someone just whack smacks into full send into the back of me, and it like just like messes up my thing super bad. I'm just like, oh god, there goes a few $100. It wasn't even my fault, you know.
And that's Hoagie Roll that's behind you.
Oh man, yeah. Well, at least it's a little cheaper of a repair for you, you know.
He's a pretty quick 5 inch pilot too, man. He flies 5 inch with us too.
Yeah, he
So
is.
we just have a good community out here, and that's what we're trying to build. My focus is not first and foremost getting faster. That's my hobby. My focus is getting guys out and getting guys flying and having a good time, and maybe picking up a podium every now and then.
Yeah, I'm really glad you actually brought that up because one thing specifically I wanted to mention ever since you said, it's more about having fun, in the community is when I started racing 5 inch stuff, I'm not a newbie. Like I'd been flying freestyle for like 2 years before that. So like when I went to my first race event, they had three classes. There's the novice, there's the sportsman, and then there's the open. Open's the fastest, right?
Right.
And like laughing, like he's in open, like he's usually first in that stuff. But Brady like destroys me. So like I went into the sportsman class and I ended up like doing really well. Like I was beating people by in laps by like 10 to 15 seconds, and all the guys were like kind of like angry at me. They're like, "Oh, why are you in the sportsman class?" I'm like, "This is my first race ever, man. Like, I don't know. Like, Brady's way faster than me. I thought I'd go middle." And so then, that was fun. But then the next race I went into like, they're like, "You need to go into open. Like you can't be in sportsman anymore. You're too fast." But
Right, right.
and all the sportsman guys are like, "Oh, you're gonna kill it in open." And I'm like, I don't know. So then like I go into open, and then everyone is like 20 to 30 seconds faster than me per laps, on average. So like the gap between sportsman and open is like huge, and like I usually finish in like the top six, like in open. But it's about having fun, So it's you don't
Yeah,
have to like win first, second, or third as long as you go there and hopefully don't destroy all your gear. You have fun and finish laps. That's what it's about.
and I think I get every now and then something happens, and I'll get frustrated, and I try to dial that back because it's no fun to be frustrated.
Yeah.
But you put a lot of effort into something, and you get frustrated for about 5 minutes. As long as you bounce back, you're good.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I got rear-ended in that first lap on that first race, and it wasn't even, I was pretty frustrated. I was like, oh man,
You're going 100 miles an hour and you're sitting in the cockpit. Duh, it's life or
Yeah,
death.
that's true.
It's because your adrenaline's pumping. Your alertness is through the roof, and
Hmm.
then somebody just completely takes you out of the air and you didn't even see it, or some whatever. And there's that immediate knee-jerk reaction, and that's what I'm trying to. Even especially for tiny whoops, trying to reel that back in because nobody likes to be around that guy.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we're almost out of time right now, but one last thing I wanted to talk about is your sponsors. I know Tiny Whoop sponsors you, but I want to know like if you have any other sponsors or what your deal
Oh
is.
yeah,
And
for sure. You mind if I do a little
yeah, please,
pluggy plug?
yeah, please
Stuff
go
we got
ahead.
going right now? All right, cool. So, Tiny Whoop. First off, I've been flying that Tiny Whoop Nano. It's really, really fun for a tree weaver.
Hmm.
And you can go check out NoodleFPV.com. We'll actually link you directly to my YouTube. Check me out on Instagram, same spot. But you can see most of the things that I fly are from Tiny Whoop, and you can see all my videos up on there. Flight One. So for my 5-inch stuff. I am sponsored by Flight One. They are not only the company that sponsors me, but I consider both Andrea and Preston family friends, and just and I consider them friends. They're great people. And I we just released Sean Taylor's new frame, actually, the Arc One, and I got two of those that I'm looking at on my wall right now. Great, great frame with three different options. We got the True X, Stretch X, and the hybrid going on those. We were talking about Sean Taylor earlier, dude. Go
Hmm.
pick up the frame, and all that can be found on flight1.com. And I can say it now, actually, because I've seen it come out on Quadbox. We have a Cricket FPV flight controller that's coming out.
Really?
Is a Revolt OSD without connectors on it. So it's a direct solder flat back Revolt OSD, and it is purple. It is really freaking cool. We actually just got those in the mail today at Flight One, and I know for a fact that they have been received and are starting to get posted on our social media. So that can be released and set now. Pretty cool. And it's actually going to be offered a little bit of a discount compared to the normal rebuilt OSD because it doesn't have those plugs on it.
Is that the thing that the maybe I heard you wrong. The quad box was waiting on or something? Or?
Yes, that was the one. It was
Ah,
man, we wanted everybody to have them as fast as they wanted them, but you know
sure.
how it works when it comes from manufacturing,
Yeah,
and it just happens, man. I don't like to promise anything to anybody that's waiting on product because you just don't know.
yeah.
It's gonna come in when it comes in, and we want you to have the product, so we're gonna get it out when we get it out, just as soon as we get it in. So, anyways, so yeah, that's something that's going to be really cool, and will be up on the Flight One website to purchase as well, I believe. So yeah, if you don't have didn't get it in Quad Box, you can stroll on over to flight1.com and get that. And let's see who else. Oh, Jim Fan, of course, they sponsor me for my Tiny Whoop props.
Nice.
Ada, she's really awesome. I got to know Ada when I was traveling around with for flying 5-inch races, and just as soon as they came out with a Tiny Whoop prop, I asked to do some testing. I do have a video on my YouTube. I do some pretty in-depth testing between those two. I need to go back and do the Venoms now because they weren't out quite yet when I did that video,
Sure.
but I will be doing that. And yeah, they started sponsoring me right after I realized that those were my favorite props. So shout out to those guys. Also, AZ Night Tracks. AZ Night Tracks is a little Whoop club that we have. They also do 5-inch races. They're the ones that do the AZ United Cup this last year.
Hmm.
So all that you actually got to fly some of the micro gates.
It was dope.
Yeah, dude, we actually have a location where those guys work out of, and those gates are always set up for us, and we pay monthly dues, and we go over there and we race twice a week and use all those. So once again, go check out my social media if you guys want to see those. And some of those gates are going to be at our Wootopia event, which is going to be a huge. We're trying to make this blow this thing up, a huge event for brushed tiny whoops. It's going to be an all brushed. We're going to have 2-man team racing. We're going to have individual racing. We're going to have whoop games, 2-day event. So August 10th and 11th, and you can go to whooptopia.com and find all the information you need for that. Awesome. It's grown. It's blown up way more than we even imagined. AK's been doing most of the promotion for that stuff. So the least I can do is to shout him and this sweet event we got planned. There's going to be all sorts of prizes. I can't even begin to name all the prizes. First places are getting Hero 5s in all 3 different class levels.
That's
So
pretty good.
yeah, dude, we're running 3 different class levels. So that's all going to be based off your time, how we break it up, off your qualifying time, how we break it up. 2-man racing, really cool 2-man racing format. Stand by for a YouTube video on Wooptopia about that format, because we're going to be showing everybody, kind of give everybody a heads up what the team racing format's going to be. And then we are testing Whoop games. So all the Whoop games will be tested and thoroughly vetted before we have everybody out there and try to get that circus together. So anyways, yeah, August 10th and 11th, I think it's $30 for individual entry and $20 for teams. So yeah, please come check that out. Please make the trip out here. It's worth it. And get in contact with me if there are any Whoop pilots that are out there listening to this, and you just need a spot to stay. You can get out here. You can get your ticket. Get out here. You just need a place to stay. We have an awesome community of guys that will probably let you crash on a couch if you're cool with that. So yeah, just hit me up directly if you guys need a place to a place to crash for a little bit. We want to make this thing huge. We want to make it really fun, and with the success of this one, we're hoping to do another one every 6 months. So sorry, that was a little long breath, but there's a lot of new stuff going on and coming out. So
No worries, man. That sounds really good.
awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I can hear myself in the speakers now.
Okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
Okay, let me turn it back down. How about now?
Let me see. I still hear myself, but it's okay. It's pretty much the end of the podcast. So one last question I had for you is your name, Noodle FPV. Explain.
Okay, so I've had that name for over 10 years now.
Oh,
or
wow.
no, just less than 10 years. So when I was in the Marine Corps, I had a major who was huge into martial arts, and including jiu-jitsu and judo. And so in turn, I began to do those things, a lot of gi fighting, a lot of throwing and stuff. But when I went into the Marine Corps, I was 120 pounds. When I got out of boot camp, I was 160. I've always been kind of a small dude. And I was the easiest to be thrown. And every single time I got thrown, they said I went limp like a wet noodle. And that became my call sign.
Wow.
So that's where it came from.
That's all right, man. At least it's got some soul.
Yeah, I got all sorts of stuff. Yeah, it was my quote unquote call sign for when I was in the military. So it just worked out.
Cool, man. All right. Well, Del, thanks again for coming on the NewBeeCast. It was a blast having you on here and learning a ton about you. I had no idea.
Yeah, dude. I just float in the wind, man. Wherever it takes me, I'm just trying to have a good time. So.
Cool, man. Well, I certainly appreciate it, and this will be on the iTunes podcast stuff and the Google, and then, of course, on our YouTube as well if you want to check that out. So check that out in the next day or so. All right, everyone for watching. Thanks again for tuning in to the NewBeeCast, and we will see you next time.
Don't forget to never quit whooping.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.